Hello everyone, welcome to the Chemical Safety Technology course. I am your instructor, Suo Yanbo. In this session, we will continue to explore the relevant knowledge of safe maintenance of chemical plants. In the previous class, we covered the requirements for hot work. In this class, we will learn about the relevant requirements for confined space operations. A confined space refers to enclosed or semi-enclosed facilities and areas within production zones that have restricted access, poor ventilation, and pose risks of toxic or harmful substances such as reactors, towers, kettles, tanks, furnaces, boiler, drums, pipelines, as well as basements, inspection wells, pits, sumps, sewers, or other enclosed or semi-enclosed locations. Confined space operations in chemical plants are frequent and involve numerous hazards, making them prone to accidents. Humans function normally in air, with an oxygen content of 19% to 21%. If the oxygen content drops to 13% to 16%, a person may suddenly lose consciousness. If it falls below 13%, death may result. Even in oxygen-enriched environments, within confined spaces, oxygen levels must not exceed 23.5%, and pure oxygen must never be used for ventilation. Since oxygen is an oxidizing agent, any spark during work could ignite a fire and cause injury. Confined space operations also face risks of explosions and poisoning. It is evident that in confined space operations, both oxygen deficiency and excess, as well as toxic substances exceeding safe concentrations, can lead to accidents. Therefore, a work permit must be obtained. Ensure adequate air ventilation by opening manholes, handholds, material ports, air dampers, and smoke dampers, any openings connected to the atmosphere to allow for natural ventilation. When necessary, use fans for forced ventilation or supply air through ductwork. Prior to supplying air via ductwork, analyze and verify the medium inside the ducts and the air source. Effectively isolate the system before ventilation begins. For any equipment previously purged with an inert gas nitrogen, it must be purged with air before entering the confined space, and the oxygen content in the air must be analyzed. For hot work operations within a confined space, in addition to ensuring that the concentration of flammable substances in the air complies with regulations, the oxygen content must be within the range of 19% to 21%. If the confined space contains toxic substances, the concentration of these substances in the air must also be analyzed to ensure it remains below the permissible exposure limit. It is important to note that passing a hot work analysis does not guarantee the prevention of poisoning incidents. Gas concentrations within the confined space must be strictly monitored with the following requirements. Gas sampling and analysis must be conducted 30 minutes prior to work. Workers may only enter after the analysis is approved. If on-site conditions do not permit this, the interval may be appropriately extended, but should not exceed 60 minutes. Monitoring points must be representative. For confined spaces with large volumes, monitoring and analysis should be conducted at the upper, middle, and lower sections. Analytical instruments must be within their calibration validity period, and their normal operating condition must be verified before use. Monitoring personnel must wear personal protective equipment when entering or reaching into the confined space to take samples. Monitoring must be conducted at regular intervals during work, at least once every 2 hours. If monitoring results show significant changes, work must be stopped immediately, personnel evacuated, and the site addressed. Work may resume only after the analysis results are satisfactory. For confined spaces where harmful substances may be released, continuous monitoring must be conducted. If abnormal conditions are detected, work must be immediately suspended, personnel evacuated, and the site treated. Work may resume only after analysis confirms compliance. When applying coatings containing volatile solvents, continuous monitoring and analysis must be conducted and forced ventilation measures must be implemented. If work is interrupted for 30 minutes, sampling and analysis must be repeated. The following protective measures shall be taken when entering the following confined spaces for work for oxygen deficient or toxic confined spaces that still fail to meet requirements after cleaning or purging. Self-contained breathing apparatus shall be worn, and a safety lifeline shall be used if necessary. For flammable or explosive confined spaces that still fail to meet requirements after cleaning or purging, anti-static work clothing and anti-static work shoes shall be worn, and explosion-proof low-voltage lighting and explosion-proof tools shall be used. For confined spaces containing corrosive media, such as acids and alkalis, wear acid and alkali-resistant work clothing, protective footwear, protective gloves, and other corrosion-resistant protective gear. For noisy, confined spaces, wear earplugs or earmuffs and other noise-protective equipment. For confined spaces where dust is generated, wear dust masks, goggles, and other dust-protective equipment, etc. When entering acid or alkali storage tanks for work, a large supply of clean water must be prepared outside the tank. If the body comes into contact with concentrated sulfuric acid, it must first be wiped clean with a cloth or cotton, then immediately rinsed with a large amount of clean water, and the person must be sent to a hospital for treatment. If the area is rinsed with clean water first, and then wiped with a cloth, the concentrated sulfuric acid will become diluted, and diluted sulfuric acid can cause even more severe burns. When working in confined spaces, where frequent contact with electrical equipment occurs, leaks from lighting fixtures or power tools can lead to electric shock and fatalities. Therefore, the voltage of lighting power sources must not exceed 36 volts, and in damp areas, it must not exceed 12 volts. When working inside damp containers, personnel must stand on an insulated mat and ensure that the metal container is reliably grounded. When maintaining equipment with stirring mechanisms, the drive belt must be removed before work begins, and the power supply must be disconnected, such as by removing fuses or switching off circuit breakers, and locked to prevent the machinery from starting. A warning sign, reading under maintenance, "Do not switch on," must then be posted at the power source. After implementing the above measures, a person must inspect and confirm compliance. When working inside a tank, generally assign 2 or more people to provide supervision from outside the tank. Supervisors must be familiar with the properties of the medium and must be positioned where they can constantly see all personnel inside the tank. They must not take their eyes off the workers and must not leave their posts without authorization. If any abnormalities are detected inside the tank, immediately summon emergency personnel, attempt to rescue the victim from the tank, and the supervisor should perform first aid outside the tank. If no other emergency responders are present, the supervisor must not enter the tank themselves, even under exceptional circumstances. Any personnel entering the tank to perform rescue operations must wear protective equipment such as gas masks or oxygen respirators and safety harnesses based on the on-site conditions. It is strictly prohibited to enter the tank to rescue someone without taking any personal protective measures. In this lesson, we have studied the requirements for confined space operations during the safe maintenance of chemical plants. To ensure safety when entering confined spaces, it is mandatory to strictly comply with the Safety Code of Special Work in Chemical Manufacturing, GB 30871, and the safety specifications for confined space. Operations in chemical production units, AQ 3028, obtain a confined space safety work permit and perform work only with a valid permit. Adhere to the 3 no-entry rules for confined space operations. Do not enter without a permit, do not enter without safety measures in place, and do not enter without a designated supervisor. That concludes this section. After class, please consider what fatal hazards exist when confined space work is scheduled for a single person working alone without a supervisor. Alright, that concludes this session. See you in the next class.